Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out the show this week. We've got a really good show for you this week. Jalen Morton, quarterback of the Southwest Kansas Storm, is on the show. We dive into his football journey through the NFL, through the CFL, USFL, UFL, and into the AF1, and what that journey's been like for him so far this year, and how the Storm team is doing, and some hobbies that he likes to partake in. Going to some foreign lands per se, but we'll dive into that in just a second. But then we'll also dive into the AF1 games from this past weekend, the IFL games from the past weekend, and then the NAL. They're rapidly approaching the end of their season, so we'll get an idea of what things look like over in their neck of the woods. But before we do that, it's time to plug the socials. That's right. So if you're not already, please make sure you're following us on Instagram, X/Twitter, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, all the things and stuff at Off the Wall FB. F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB. We're on all the socials. Come say hi. Come join the conversation. Love it when people mix it up a little bit and provide some scorching hot takes. I've had some people reach out to me via DM and just want to talk indoor football, and that's why I'm there. I love it. So reach out, come say hi, and don't be a stranger. And if you're watching on YouTube, hello. Thanks for being here. Please make sure you're subscribing to the channel and liking this video as well. As you can see, I have a little bit of a different setup, going with the more traditional turf tape setup than what you're used to with the weekly Off the Wall show. Giving it a shot. Let me know what you think. And I have this blank canvas here. I have a whiteboard here. I'm not sure what to do with it. So if you're watching on YouTube, give me your thoughts in the comments. What should I use this whiteboard for? Should I put my picks record up there? Should I troll my enemies? Like, what should I do? Tell me what to do, and we'll do it. But if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, that bit made absolutely zero sense, and I'm sorry you had to hear that. But if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure that you're rating the show 5 stars, preferably on the show page, liking the episode, sharing it with a friend, doing all those things and stuff. It helps the show grow, and we're looking to make this thing as big as we can make it. So that's enough of the plugs and enough of the nonsense. Let's dive into the interview with quarterback Jalen Morton. All right, on the show this week, we have a quarterback who's been in the CFL, the USFL, the UFL, and he is the starting quarterback for the Southwest Kansas Storm of Arena Football 1. His name is Jalen Morton. Jalen, appreciate you taking the time to hop on. How are things in Dodge City as we're heading into this bye week and you're continuing this playoff push in Southwest Kansas?
It's amazing. I mean, you forgot one, the NFL, but
NFL, that's right. Yeah. God.
It's the NFL before CFL, but
yeah,
it's all good. It's all good. But definitely enjoying the bye week. Something that personally I needed, just along the journey that I've been in the last 3 weeks. I got signed to a UFL team and basically went from that UFL team to drive back up to Kansas to go to Montana, to come back from Montana to play again. So it was a busy 3 weeks for me. So
yeah, no kidding. How many miles on the ground is that? Birmingham to Southwest to Montana?
On the ground. So, I actually went to Texas because all the UFL teams are in Texas. So it was Texas to fly to Birmingham, fly back. Tuesday, hey, I got released, or Monday I got released. Tuesday I'm on the road. So it's quite some miles,
And you're a Rolling Stone. You're all over this place, man.
Hey, come on now.
Yeah. So to start, tell us a little bit about your journey through football and what led you to signing with the Storm for the 2025 AF1 season.
God. For God, I'm a product of him, and I thank him for this whole process, this whole journey, this everything that's led up to this. Going undrafted to Green Bay, being in the 2020 class of COVID, and one of the top quarterback classes of all time.
Yeah.
That, and then getting cut from going there to Indy. Jim Irsay just died, so I just RIP Jim Irsay.
Yes.
So then after that, going to the CFL for 2 years or a year and a half, because I went mid-season after being released by Indy. Learning that game, and that game was a little bit different, just a little bit faster than the NFL game due to the waggle and the field and 12 people on the field. Then coming back down after that and doing in the USFL and everything started clicking. My year in the USFL became the second string quarterback due to one of the quarterbacks being hurt and also the quarterback in front of me being the MVP.
Yeah.
Then after that, we have the merge with the XFL and the USFL, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm good, and other quarterbacks go get signed, and other quarterbacks get taken, and then now later on, I'm taking in a second draft.
Yeah.
So my when I was taking in that draft, not only was I irritated, but I had a chip on my shoulder already to fit multiple boulders on. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
I'm going to the UFL season training camp, with it on my mind. The thing is, to get film and, as a competitor that I am, I always want to start.
Yeah.
And so that was my mindset. And, I was told a lot of things that, hey, you had a great camp, this, then, and third. And got released. Hey, it happens. It happens. So after that, kind of the year goes by. I turned down a couple of CFL teams thinking I would go back to the UFL because I didn't want to get caught in the CFL.
Right. Yeah.
So the next year comes around and I'm thinking I'm going to get signed and it doesn't happen. And then Storm contacts me and is like, hey, do you want to play arena ball? And that was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
It was a hard pill to swallow, and I was, I was really not getting, but I was really, talking to God at the moment, and just like, hey, like, is this something that I need to do? Is it another opportunity, or is this the opportunity? And I always looked at it like just coming in like a Kurt Warner story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just one of those things, and just opening my mind because I kind of had the same thing with the CFL. Going to NFL to CFL.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. Like I was mad, I was irritated. I was just like I said, that chip on my shoulder is as big as an elephant. It's huge.
It's
So
growing. Yeah.
yeah, it's only getting bigger. And like
Yeah.
I said, I'm a competitor. um I compete. I hate losing, and whether it's in a football game or whether I lost a position battle or whatever, however that goes.
Yeah.
So the chip only got bigger. So I looked at it as a new experience, as something to where you learn from the game, get film. Like I said, the Kurt Warner story. I've probably
Yeah.
watched that movie, The American Underdog Story, so many times.
Yeah.
'Cause, he went to Green Bay, he got released, and then
Yep.
it was all from there. Um, so that's how I kind of got here. Just God, just believing in Him, trusting in Him. I'm just a product of Him, and what I can do. I know my abilities. God knows my abilities. It's the ability to show and showcase my abilities in front of people and know what I can do,
Yeah.
as well as the intellect that comes with it. I've always been a smart fella. Always been a smart guy. Mechanical engineering degree. So
Oh, okay. Didn't
yeah.
realize that.
Yeah, so I got a mechanical engineering degree. A lot of people don't know or ask that, like, oh, you got a degree, whatever, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
but the only other engineer that I know in the league right now, NFL, is Joshua Dobbs.
Yeah.
So so other than that, it's just one of those things where, like, that's kind of what brought me here. That was my journey in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And the journey's not over. Everybody's end goal is for whether, is to get back into the NFL or to, have their name, instated in the AF1. Everybody has a goal. And
Right.
my goal is to get back to where I started and thrive and keep going. And, everybody has that goal. And, that's mine. Like, get back in the
Yeah.
NFL and thrive and know and be who I am and who I should be, and go from there. Because, everybody can talk about it, but it's the one thing to do it. And like I said, just giving it to God. I cannot express that enough.
Yeah.
Everybody has days to where you're like, man, like you just gotta listen to God, like
Yeah.
is there. So
Yeah, it seems like you know what you're capable of, but now you
mm,
just got to get everyone else on board with it. Be
no
like,
doubt,
look,
no doubt.
this is what y'all missing right now. Like, come on,
Yes, sir.
and obviously so far it's working. You got that call back from the
Mhm.
UFL, and you got that opportunity to hop back. So it's better to put something on tape than rather than have that tape collect dust and
Right.
another year goes by and you're like, oh yeah, that guy, does he still play? It's like you don't want
Right.
that to be the case either.
Yeah, I mean, I've always heard that recent film is the best film, and
Yeah,
they can't go back off of last year or 2 years from now unless you know somebody.
right.
Unless you're one of those top guys to where you got drafted in, the first round, second round, and you've been on the practice squad, or whatever, and
Yeah,
all right, we'll come get them. So
yeah,
and I wasn't that guy.
yeah.
Unfortunately, I wasn't that guy. I didn't get drafted. I didn't have a pro day. Everything got shut down. I want to say 4 days before I was about to have my pro day.
Oh, geez.
Had a lot of things lined up. So like I said, God.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
so
Did you know about arena football growing up, or was it something you learned about a little later on in life?
I want to say a little bit later on in life, like it was always um, more so like you've heard about it. You've heard about it.
Right.
Yeah. So in Dallas, I guess you have the Frisco Fighters.
Yeah, the
Frisco
fighters.
Fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sorry to butcher their name. So
No, you're good. You're
uh
good.
so you hear about them, but you don't really, it doesn't really register because you got the Cowboys, you got so many other
Yeah.
teams there. You got UT, I'm sorry, not UNT there, and like you got a lot of football. Texas is football oriented, so you
I
don't
mean, high
really
school football even.
exactly,
High.
you got Allen right there, so
Yeah.
so yeah, I've always heard about it, and then I bring up Kurt Warner, like yeah, you hear about a Hall of Fame guy like that,
Yeah.
and then you're like, all right, well, what? Like it? Hold on, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so more, I would say more so later in life to where you've seen all types of things. I don't think I heard about it when they were making six figures. Like,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but of course, later, and I say want to say like more so when like I said, the Kurt Warner story came out, and just watching that and understanding what he went through and how he went
Right.
through it, and um, so yeah, that's where I kind of like, oh, okay, like you always knew about something, but it's not televised like people think like it is
Yeah.
now, I guess. So
Yeah. Well, I want to touch on that transition to the CFL and after you spent some time in the NFL and adjusting to the waggle, like you mentioned, like what was the biggest culture shock going to the CFL and it's like some of that high man motion and some of that waggle. How did that help you kind of get going in AF1 this year?
yeah, just talking to vets. Always talking to vets, always talking to the older guys, always talking to, the defense, and they'll
Yeah.
help you out a lot. Uh, just talking to vets, because there was two vet quarterbacks in front of me. Or not two. When I got up there, it was three. You had David Watford, you had Jeremiah Masola, and you had Dane Evans.
Yeah.
And they taught me the game. And then we got vets on defense where you got, a guy named Brooks and a guy named Rowley, and you got a CFL Hall of Famer named Simone Lawrence. You got guys like those, and they're like, and I'm like, hey, like, how do you see this? How do you see that? Like, what tells, because I have a cannon, I have an arm, everybody knows it, whatever. That's
Yeah.
cool, but like,
How
if
can you
that
use
ball
it?
hangs, yeah, like if that ball hangs too long in the air, that boundary half can go get it. And it was
Yeah.
things like that it's a 65-yard width and 50-yard length, and
Yeah.
so that's a lot of airtime even for the strongest of arms. um and so like guys like all in Darby, he was one of the vet guys also who he picked me off twice in my second year in training camp, and I'm like, how? And those were my only two picks. I was
Yeah.
like, how? And he basically said he baited me in a sense, but in a sense, he did something a vet will only know how to do.
Right.
And just talking to guys like those, and the waggle wasn't too hard. You just need to understand the horizontal and the vertical one. And it's all timing. And I say timing, the wide receivers got to time it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
yeah. I didn't already read you a list of groceries from the wristband. Y'all got to do the rest. Y'all got to help me
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Meet me halfway, please. Come
Yeah.
on.
So it's not too bad. And going back to the NFL from the CFL, like I knew that translation would be easier because
Right.
when I was with the Colts, they wanted in the headset. Now that you see nowadays, everybody's off the wristband.
Mm-hmm.
Like you rarely see people, calling it from the ear, or it's a lot from the wristband. And but hearing it in the CFL, which was way longer.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, Aaron Rodgers' playbook was a little lengthy, but
yeah. Right.
that was a little lengthy going from Prairie View and going from signals, and you're like, okay, cool. Like I know I got a great memory, but that and
That's
just
a lot.
yeah, it's a lot. And like, hey, I had to go back and study like I was in engineering classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So other than that, back to the CFL, it wasn't too much of a culture shock, other than like poutine, fries and gravies and
That'll
cheese.
do it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I like nacho fries, but that's how they look at us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 12th man, figuring out that coverage. Everything, depending on the day, everything could look like three. Everything could look like three, and it could be man, or it could be four, or it could be quarter, half. Like they have the same thing, just with an extra person, in the CFL. And then the goalpost, the goalpost in the front of the end zone, that kind of threw me off as well. So I had to learn how to throw over that. So
yeah, you don't want to lead your receiver into the goalpost. That's not good for anybody.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
So you go from playing in the league with an extra guy on the field to fast forward to this year, you're playing in Dodge City with the Storm and a lot less players on the field in an arena football game. Tell me about Coach Thomas. What's it like playing for him, and what was it that made you want to sign with Southwest Kansas about him specifically?
Opportunity. I've always heard a great thing about Coach Thomas.
Yeah.
He said it was going to be a battle. And like I said, I'm a competitor. So
yeah, he spoke
I'm
your
a
language.
competitor. Yeah. So he gave me the opportunity, and that's all I've ever asked for, and that's all I've ever needed, was that opportunity for somebody to trust in me. And so Coach Thomas is that guy who trusts in me. He trusts my IQ, he trusts what I see, he trusts how I look at things. And it's vice versa with him. I trust him. I trust what he sees, and we always talk about things. So you can see us on either TV or something. He could be yelling at me, and I'm like, hey, like I get what you're saying, but that's not what I saw. And then we go look at it on film, and we're like, it's like, oh, well, that did this and he did that, and blah, so really and honestly, he's a great man. He in this game, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. It's a different style of arena football. That a lot of guys don't play, but in his eyes, it's like, what are we huddling for?
That's fair.
What are we huddling for? So it's one of those things where he likes what he likes, and he's one of those guys. He's a very loyal man. He's a very respectable man too,
right.
To where if he's going to get angry, he's going to get mad. He's gonna if whatever he does to let out emotions is valid. Is very valid. It's not like he's screaming at you just because or anything disrespectful. His because as a perfectionist, as somebody who wants to get it done, as somebody who likes to score points.
Yeah, who doesn't? Yeah.
So why can't we score? Why can't we score like we need to score? And so his frustrations, or his emotions that sometimes people see, it could get taken out of context. And I'm here to say, like, hey, like, he's probably screaming at me because I should have went there and I went
Yeah.
over there and I missed it. I was like, oh well, my fault. So
Yeah, my bad. I'll get it next time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, but who doesn't? And that's the thing though.
Of
He
course.
doesn't. He's a very chilled, relaxed coach, but don't get that mixed in with like a pushover, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
uh,
it'd be cause for concern if he wasn't yelling at those things,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
If he was just chill, he was like, it's okay. It's okay. It's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 that we don't
Yeah,
want that. No, no,
at
no.
all. It's
That's
like,
awful.
yeah, oh yeah. So I would say, along with the things that as a leader that I bring, I've definitely taken some things from him as well, and I just feel like we just go head and head, and I say head and head is like we're on the same page,
Of course, yeah.
at all times, and that 1% where we're not on the same page is because I saw something different. His angle is always different from mine, and so it's like more time. Like I said, more times than not, that 1% is okay. Well, I saw this, you saw that. All right, let's
Talk
talk
it
about it.
out. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
and so like I said, we're both pretty calm people, so we're always ready to talk it out. We're
for
always
sure.
ready, like, hey, like, what did you see? How do you see this? And I'm a guy who asks questions, whether I see it all or I see nothing. I'm asking, hey, what do you see? What are you
Yeah.
seeing? How do you see this? Whether it's in practice or in the game. I'm like, hey, I saw this. How do you feel about this? And he's going to give me that feedback that I need and that I want, because like I said, I want to be on the same page as my head coach, my offensive coordinator, quarterback coach.
Of course. Yeah.
And that's how we win games, as we're on the same page. So
Yeah, you mentioned that unique approach to arena football. It's like a modern adaptation of that classic arena football game. Like you mentioned, it's in shotgun, not really huddling. You're just kind of going out there and be like, all right, here we go. Making it happen on the fly. So it
yeah,
sometimes seems, just because you guys go so fast sometimes, seems like it took a little time to get that figured out, and the arena game as a whole. But you guys have been on an absolute tear lately. What specifically has clicked for you in this offense to get things going? Because you've scored 60 points the past couple of games, and that's a lot of points.
um, I say just everybody being on the same page. When that clicks for everybody, everybody's clicking at the same time. The fastest car is the fastest car, and you know how that goes.
Yeah,
So that's what I feel like. I just feel like everybody's on the same page, whether it's all eight of us and listening to Coach Thomas, or is Coach Thomas hearing what we got to say, and we're all just, like I said, we're all on the same page. It's not like that one person out of eight person is doing something different. No, we're
right.
all on the same page. We all watch film. We all just get together and try to understand each other. And I feel like that's one of the things that's hard when let's say like D Wash is a vet guy. He
Yeah,
knows things that that Charles or Logan or I or Shiloh wouldn't know. So when he's talking, you're trying to listen and understand where he's coming from, and then you add that in your toolkit, or in somewhere so in something you do. So
yeah. I think that that's interesting, because I think on a broadcast earlier this year, I don't remember what game it was. They mentioned, the commentators did, about how Coach Thomas typically doesn't bring in a ton of vet guys because he wants people like in his system, and like buying in. And sometimes veteran guys can bring old baggage and some not so great habits with them, and poison the well, so to speak. So it's good to hear that he kind of brought a positive outlook, and it's really helped you guys out get things together on
yes,
offense.
no doubt.
So when is there like a certain point in some of these games where like you just realize you're like, we're in the zone right now, like we're flowing, everything's going, or is it just like, all right, next play, we gotta focus on executing every single time we're out there?
I say every single time, I'm more of a short-term memory type of quarterback.
Right.
It's always the next play, and that's always what I've kind of realized, like whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, like it's next play mentality.
Yeah.
And you can't think of, oh, well, that was a great ball. I mean, you can't that play, run play might be the next one. Now you got to get the handoff. Now you got to make sure you read the proper things. You can't be thinking about a perfect ball
Yeah.
that, hey, all right, cool. That was a perfect ball. Let me get a couple more of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Save that for after the game.
yeah, no doubt. And more times than not, I forget. I forget them anyway. Oh, teammates come up to me and they'll be like, "Oh, you remember when you did that?" Blah, blah. No, no,
I
I
don't
don't.
know.
Like, I gotta go watch it on film, and I
Yeah.
think that's where the zone that you're talking about comes in. Like, oh,
Yeah.
we're in the zone. I'm in the zone all game until the clock on fourth quarter hits 0-0-0. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, you
so
gotta be locked in. Well,
all of
when you're
them.
lined up and you've got a play call and you like pre-snap, you see something that tells you like, all right, this play's gonna be perfect. It's gonna work. How do you keep a poker face when you're lining up? Because like to me, it seems like if I saw something I was gonna take advantage of, I'd be grinning, I'd be giddy, but you kind of gotta play it cool. Like you don't want to give it away
Yeah.
either. So like how do you approach that when you see something you're like, oh, this is gonna be money. Like I know it.
That kind of it gives me that Aaron Rodgers picture,
Yeah.
uh, where when he grins because he knows the defense is about to blow a coverage.
Uh-huh.
I'm not Aaron,
Yeah.
I see it, and like I said, I'm in the zone, so I'm just like, all right, blow the coverage if you want to, or
Yeah,
run that
right.
right
Yeah.
coverage for it, if you want to. And then that's when, all right, I might smile because now, it's still a lot of variables that has to go into it. You still got to get
Right.
snapped, you still got to block. Everybody has to be blocked. The right route has to be ran, and the ball has to be caught. End of the day. So
Yeah.
other than that, okay, I can grin, but that grin will go into a poker face real quick because
Uh-huh.
I need everything to go right. And that's
Yeah.
how I look at it. More so like a poker face, nobody can read you. That's
Yeah.
what it
Right.
is, a poker face. So more times than not, people are trying to read you. Why do you need to read me? You don't need to see me. You don't need to
Hmm.
see my face, my grins or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say if it's an RPO or whatever. Hey, and if I get to smiling and I smile on the RPO, they start picking those things up.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
I don't want to be read. There's no reason to read me.
Yeah. I remember years and years ago when Antonio Brown was first getting into the league, they ran a story on SportsCenter where every time he was the target, he would adjust his gloves before the snap. And
Exactly.
without fail, he would adjust his gloves and the ball would go his way. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's those little things like that. Like
Every
they're
time.
professionals too. Like they'll pick up on it. And if you have a
Exactly.
pattern, they'll pick up on it quick.
Very. And that's what I've always learned, especially, as one of my favorite quarterbacks or when I was growing up was Peyton. Like,
Yeah.
okay, everybody loves Tom, and that's cool, but mine was Peyton. And then to meet him and all of that, be a part of the Colts organization,
Yeah.
but meeting Peyton and understanding how his mind works and understanding like, hey, like this man is high key a genius, and y'all just don't really understand the intelligence that's really behind it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows where Tom is saying, hey, if he's this leg up, he's blitzing. If he's this leg back, he's not blitzing or whatever. Like Peyton was calling that out times 10, or hey, the corner is doing this on this time on third down. And that's
Yeah.
kind of really how I started looking at things and trying to pick up those tendencies of certain backers or certain D linemen or things of that nature. So everybody has a tendency, everybody has a favorable thing they like to do. It's
Right.
about what how do you want to go about it. And so if one of those things are all right, well, I smiled every time I'm about to throw a touchdown, it might change the coverage.
Yeah, that's fair.
Can't have
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, can't do that.
Can't have that.
Yeah.
So
Well, what's it like going up against that defense every day in practice? You go up and down the roster on that Storm defense. You got Lawson, Clary, Matthews, Freese in the secondary, and
um,
then don't that's just the secondary. Not even starting with the pass rush. It seems like it would be a battle every single
yeah.
day.
It is. And we call them the best defense for a reason, and that's how we truly feel.
Yeah.
They give us the best looks, they give us what we need, and vice versa. Um, it's at the end of the day, we're all pros and we practice like pros.
Right.
And so that's the main thing. Just practice like a pro, and nobody gets hurt. We all get what we need. We all get what we see. And I feel like understanding as a team is where I think, where we, succeed. We understand each other as a team. Like nobody's trying to get hurt, but also be a pro and play. So that team or not that team, I'm sorry, but that defensive team we have, they're great in my opinion. Like you said, Mike Lawson, you have Deuce back there, you have Keon, and they're all crazy interchangeable, as well as our D line and backers. Like we can put anybody literally anywhere if we wanted to. Yeah. And I think that's the scary part because at one time, we'll have a 5'7", 5'8" jack. The next play, I might have a 6'5" jack.
Yeah.
Or I might have a 6'5" Mac, and then the next one I got a 6'2", 295, Mac. That's
coming in hot. Yeah,
exactly. And like I said, just being pros at the end of the day and understanding. But the defense that I go against every day is really just an immaculate defense, and I'm just blessed to go against those guys every day and not go against them one weekend. And so
I'd imagine when you go against them every day, when it comes game time for some other folks, you're like, oh, thank God. This is a break. I don't have to face the secondary on my own team anymore.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier this month signing with the Salians for a game before coming back to the Storm. How did that all go about, and what was that experience like going back to Birmingham?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Going back to Birmingham, it was cool. It was different just because of all the injuries. Of course, I would love to have stayed on the roster, love to have played and got in the game. Other than that, they had 6 QBs on the roster. I couldn't do anything about that. I kind of knew going in like, hey, somebody might come back. But at the same time, another quarterback during the game, I was at got hurt. So you just never know. And they just had those unfortunate events. But I did, like my time there, got to connect with the guys that I already knew and some guys that I didn't know, some guys that I knew, on other teams that came to the Stallions. And just saw a lot of familiar faces. They were happy to have me back. But I just, wish I would have played. I wish I would have stayed. And did that because they're a 3-time champ for a reason.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I wanted another ring, but why not get a ring myself?
Of course. Well, it would have been something else to see that number 24 lining up at quarterback. What's the story behind that, and how did that happen? How'd you end up with 24?
They didn't have any more numbers, so I couldn't take a number from people who had stats.
Okay.
And everybody had low numbers, and they banned 0. The
Really?
UFL banned 0.
Huh. Okay.
Exactly. So that's something I just had to stick with. And, and yeah, I just dealt with it. Got called Kobe. Yeah, I got called Kobe a couple of times from.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. That's a good spin.
But other than that, it didn't really bother me because the number doesn't make the person.
Right.
Would I have liked to have my number, in college or the number that I'm wearing now? Of course, but even when I was with them, I was 18. But I'd like that number, of course.
Right, yeah.
But the number doesn't make the person. The person makes the number.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when they flashed the camera to you on the sideline. I was like, 24? What is going on? But yeah, you ended up back with the Storm, and like we mentioned at the top here, charging towards the playoffs and looking good while doing it. The AF1 have had some really great jerseys, especially the Storm. Power rankings are sweeping the arena football community right now. If you had to power rank the different jerseys in the AF1, across the entire league, what would be some of your top three, top four that you like? Storm included.
Honestly, I don't even know all the jerseys.
Okay.
I don't know all the jerseys, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I know ours is top tier.
Oh yeah.
Whether you want to go our purple ones or black ones or our white ones, it don't matter. Top
Right.
tier.
Yeah.
I would say I like Corpus's baby blue.
Oh
It's
yeah.
kind of that's kind of dope. Who else is? I don't really. Oh, Albany's all gray.
Oh yeah. The
Yeah, I
the oh
like the gray.
the Billings all gray. That
Yeah,
last one.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
Albany. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Billings
I
all
got you.
gray.
Yeah. That one
Uh,
look clean.
I do like Albany's orange.
Yeah.
I
That
do
one's
like
cool.
Albany's orange.
Yeah. Those are sweet.
Um, yeah, I don't. I'm trying to figure out what Nashville has.
Yeah.
I
They just
think,
have like an all black one.
yeah,
There's nothing too crazy that jumps off the screen when you
yeah.
watch it.
Thinking of Oregon, I don't remember what Oregon out has. I know Salina has a red one.
Yeah, they got an all red one. Oregon had an all
Yeah,
orange one from earlier this year that looked pretty
yeah,
sweet.
it was. Yeah, that was. I like that one too. I feel like I'm missing a couple.
The Washington, did you see the Washington that they think they had the all
Yeah,
teal?
yeah. It was okay. It was. I think they had one too, to where like it was like almost like their helmets, like it was patches.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was I feel like they did that a little bit different. It could have
It
been
could have
two.
hit. It could have
Yeah, it
hit.
could have
Yeah.
been two.
So
But
so it sounds like your power rankings are Storm, 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 Gray
yeah,
Billings.
yeah, no doubt. Come on now.
I like it. I like it. So I was looking through your socials preparing for this, and it looks like you like to travel a lot. What's been your favorite place that you visited?
Oh, Tokyo.
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 Okay.
Tokyo. Love. Man, that was a bucket list thing for me. Tokyo
Yeah.
was a bucket list thing. And I loved it. It was crazy, it was amazing. But also I definitely want to do more things like, go to St. Lucia, go to more European places. I want to go
Right.
snowboarding. I want to learn how to
Okay.
snowboard. So
Yeah. All right.
but I definitely like to travel. I feel like that's something that everybody needs to do just to understand the world.
Of course. Yeah.
Just to understand and just get out because it's definitely more places than the United States. Even when I went to
Yeah.
Canada and saw Toronto and saw Ottawa and Vancouver and all those type of places, I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Toronto has a special place in my heart just because you always hear about it, but you never really get to see it. And it's just a smaller New York, and I love New York. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw some of the other places you went to was what was it, South Africa and
yeah,
Hungary? Did I see Hungary on
yeah, you
there?
saw it. You saw it.
What led you to Hungary? Like, how'd you end up there?
Vacation, just wanted to see a couple of different things.
Okay.
South Africa was also another crazy thing. I don't know if really saw walking with lions, petting cheetahs.
Yeah.
I
I'm like, what is
heart
happening right
racing.
now?
Heart is racing because at any time they can go off. And it's
Oh yeah.
funny, it's funny because we were in the, they're locked up, they're in cages and whatnot, but they're saying the zookeepers, or not the zookeepers, but the people who raise the lions, they're like, hey, don't make too many subtle movements, y'all chill. Be, just don't do too much. You don't do too much, basically. And it
No
was a
pressure.
woman. Yeah, it's a woman standing right next to me. Mind you, it's a male lion, grown male lion, and
Yeah.
he's walking around. He's seeing us. He's walking up to the fence. And mind you, these fences are they're pretty high, but
Yeah.
trust me, if a lion wanted to jump over, he would have
He'd
jumped
find a
over.
way. He'd find
He'd
a way.
find a
Yeah.
way. And I think they were electric as well, but
Okay.
come on now.
Yeah.
Um, so she's rambling through her purse. She's rambling through her purse, like
No.
going
Mm-mm.
in. And the lion is looking my direction. I'm just like, all right, let me back up. Cause what the people who raise the lions, they said they go after people who turn their back,
Right.
and they go after the smallest people. Well, I'm the tallest, so I'm getting
Yeah.
out
You're
and I'm probably the fastest. I'm gone
yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
So that petting the cheetah had my heart racing too. Walking behind lions, three lions, petting the cheetah had my heart racing because
Oh,
You know, we all know cheetahs are fast, and we
oh
was
yeah.
in their enclosure. So we're
Oh
in there
man.
in the cheetah's enclosure. Mind you, the cheetah had a cub, and it was a lady, the same lady, went in front of me and scared off the cub.
No,
So
no.
now everybody's a little aggravated. Don't worry
Mhm.
about it. I'll hold my turn and go, go let a couple of people go in front of me. But the good thing is that the cheetah purred and was real calm when I was with her, and pet her, and I was like, all right, we good. Like I don't need no more,
Yeah.
too much more.
Yeah.
But we were in a small enclosure to where like one little run, leap, hop, and a skip, it's she's on the other side. Like
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
so I didn't want to be in that predicament. Cape Town is one of those places to where, you have buildings in the in the mountains, like something
Yeah.
that you're like, hold on, like mind blowing. So definitely
Yeah.
love Cape Town. Hungary was cold,
Yeah, it looked
but
like it.
it's somewhere like, you wanted to. It's somewhere like it's like Hungary, Budapest, two different spots. It's like Buddha and Pest. That's two different towns, cities, countries. There we go. Two different countries, and they're
Yeah.
connected by a bridge. So
Oh shit.
technically, that's
Didn't
two in
realize.
one.
Huh.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Hmm.
So just just understanding, just where you're at, just trying to, you
Right.
know, see more. Like I said, it's a whole world that we don't, as most people in the US don't understand. Like, hey,
Of
like
course. Yeah.
go understand, go learn a culture or something. Go see, where other mountains, where other, what masses of water at. And I say that like, don't go over there and be dumb, but
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
um, but yeah, just travel. Like you have the ability to, why not? You have years of
Yeah.
life, why not?
Yeah, there's a
So
whole lot of world out there to visit, and it's awesome to see you taking advantage of it. So you're a quarterback and a cheetah whisperer. That's what I heard. These are my two takeaways.
see, look, I wouldn't know about the cheetah whisperer, but cheetahs were always my favorite animal growing up. So
Okay,
maybe that
they
might be
felt
my
that.
spirit. Yeah, my
Yeah,
spirit animal.
yeah, they felt the good vibes coming from you.
Yeah, no doubt, no
You have
doubt.
any places lined up next to visit?
Like I said, St. Lucia,
Oh, St.
or
Lucia, yeah.
yeah, I want to go there. I want to go to Vietnam. I want to go to Thailand. And
Yeah,
it's a couple of other like beach type spots I would like to go to since I just came from the cold.
right.
My last trip, I would like to go to a couple of beach spots. So,
Yeah.
just go to the Netherlands and see what that's talking about. So,
Yeah, well, if if the person listening to this wants to follow along on his travels, the social links to his Instagram is in the description right below here. So go give him a follow on Instagram and give it a nice little scroll down. You'll see some really good vacay photos. Get some inspiration to go
oh
globe
yeah,
trotting here.
hey, it's
Um,
it's still a lot of things I haven't even posted yet. So,
right, yeah. Well, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to hop on. One last question before we get out of here. What's next for you? What's next for the Storm? And what can fans expect the rest of the season?
well, what's next for us is the next day, the next
Yeah,
opportunity, the next game, and Salina is the next game. So that's who we're preparing for, and we just take it, a game at a time. And the next game is the best game. The next game is the game we're worried about, and
right.
that's all we can say. We're pushing for what we're pushing, and everybody knows. Uh, but at the same time, we're in control of our destiny, always in control of our destiny.
Yep.
So when that comes to mind, just taking it day by day, play by play, game by game, and just coming out just with a victory, and going 1-0 end of the day.
Yeah. Focus on what you can control and day by day. It's a good way to approach it.
Oh yeah,
Well, like I said, this has been great. Really appreciate you hopping on here. Best of luck the rest of the way, and I'm sure we'll be in contact soon, okay?
oh yeah. Appreciate you as well.
Massive thank you to Jalen for taking the time to join the show this week and talk through his football journey and being very transparent with how he was feeling along the way and some of the things that he's had to go through and hearing some of his travels from Southwest Kansas to Texas to Birmingham, back to Texas to Southwest to Montana. It's like, oh man, this guy is a globetrotter. And hearing some of the places that he's visited and some of the places that he still wants to go, he's a literal globetrotter and a cheetah whisperer. So big shout out to Jalen for hopping on the show, and hopefully he rests up this upcoming week of the bye week because he's got a couple of really good games to end the season. But let's dive into the AF1 games from this past weekend. We had a couple games that we can talk through. One of the most notable ones that was one of the more intriguing matchups of the weekend was the Oregon Lightning going to Nashville to face the Nashville Cats. And Nashville won this game 50-36. So Oregon was riding a 3-game win streak, and this Nashville team was coming off of a bye and a tough matchup against Albany a few weeks back. It seemed like Nashville was in the driver's seat and controlled their own destiny, but they just let that third quarter get away from them against Albany. And so they were looking to right the ship. And for this game in particular, this was a lot closer in the first half than I expected. For Nashville, the offense was getting into a rhythm in the first half, but the defense was giving up some big plays in the second quarter that made this a much tighter game than you would have thought it would be. But the Cats were able to lock things down in the second half, and they took control of this game on both sides of the ball to secure the win. Tyler Kolka, he had another strong showing in this game. He had 187 passing yards and 5 touchdowns, while getting newly acquired wide receiver Niger Jackson involved 3 times for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Cats secondary also came up pretty big in this one. 3 interceptions on the day, and they really shut things down in the second half. Newly signed defensive lineman Jaquan Artis made his impact known in his debut with 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and a safety. So a really great game from the Cats on both sides of the ball, scoring 50 points, holding Oregon, I think, to 1 score in the second half, which is a big win anytime in arena football. But the biggest weakness right now, if we had to point to something for this Cats team, is their special teams, and specifically with the kick return game. Multiple times over the past few games, they've had some miscues on returns that gave free points to the opposition and flipped the momentum of the game. It happened in Albany, and Albany was able to run away with it in the third quarter. It happened against Oregon this past weekend towards the end of the first half, where Oregon was down by 14 points with about 50 seconds left. They were going into halftime with the lead. So it was a big flip of momentum when those things happened. And if the Cats don't have those things happen, they probably win this game a lot by a lot more, and they might have been able to knock off Albany if they were able to keep trading blows with them. But that's neither here nor there. But for Oregon, they were coming in hot with an offense that scored 50 points in 2 consecutive games, but this was a much tougher defense and a much different team than what they faced in their past 3 games. For Oregon, the 3 games before this, they were against teams that aren't that good. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Against Washington and Corpus Christi, they were really able to lay it on offensively, but in this game, against Nashville, they struggled a little bit, specifically in that second half. Dalton Cole was able to throw for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's great. But he also had 3 interceptions and completed less than half of his passes. Not great. That Lightning O-line had its moments in the first half, but overall they were allowing a lot of pressure, and the passing game really suffered because of it. And they still have not been able to get much of a rushing attack going for them. They did have a really cool play in the red zone where they sent an offensive lineman in high motion and had Dalton Cole just do like a little quarterback power behind the high motion man, who was a 6'6", 330-pound offensive lineman. So that was pretty sweet. But outside of the red zone, they're never really a threat to run the ball. When they get inside the 5, that's when you think, okay, Dalton Cole's probably going to tuck it and run up the middle here. But you never really see them running the ball at midfield. You never see them running the ball at their own 10, at their own 15. It seems like they have a little bit of Washington in them where they try to go for that home run ball as often as possible. And if you're just able to take what the defense gives you and establish a little bit of a running game like some of these other teams are able to do on a consistent week-to-week basis, that would probably work out a lot better for you. So this wasn't a bad game by Oregon. They're still alive in the playoff race, but they got to win out and get a little bit of help in order to make the big dance. But they're certainly not out of it by any means. Moving over to the next game, we got the Corpus Christi Tritons facing off against the Albany Firebirds, and Albany won this game 64-27. And the last time these two teams met, we had that infamous 100-12 game in which there were some off the field issues that caused some roster adjustments at the last moment and created one of the more lopsided games in recent history. But fast forward to this week, There were still some off the field issues, but this time with uniforms instead of personnel, which go to off the wall socials to check out that whole ordeal. But basically, the Tritons started the game in old Albany Empire uniforms because their usual baby blues that they wear were delayed, shipped they got lost in the flight. I don't know. There was something with the uniforms where they weren't there when the game started. But all things considered, Corpus looked pretty good in this one. They recently got back Quintavious Workman, who stepped in as the clear number one receiver for them, hauling in 12 catches for 85 yards and three touchdowns. And he really helped get things going for the offense in the first half. And Richie Anderson, who was with Oregon a little bit earlier this year, had 8 catches, 118 yards, and a touchdown as well. Really gave some moments of inspiration for this Tritons team that's been through a lot this year. And it looked like they were going to be dead in the water leading into this game where they started off really good with that roster of Darius Prince, Terrence Ames, Dwayne Hollis, and have just gone into a free fall ever since then. But I think they have just enough on offense, and this game was provided just enough hope where I think they might be able to sneak into the playoffs if they start to get things clicking over these final two games. And they might be able to sneak in if they're able to pull off an upset on Nashville. But that's a big if. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves there. But for Albany, this was business as usual. What more can you really say about the Albany Firebirds that hasn't been said already? It's just they're a team that they just have an offensive barrage. They just overwhelm you with their firepower on offense, and then on defense, you being the opponent feels the need to desperately try to get back in this game and maybe call some plays, maybe make some decisions that you typically wouldn't make, and the defense is able to capitalize on it, and it just snowballs from there. But future AF1 MVP Sam Casanova, it is what it is, guys. Let's not pretend anymore. Went 22 for 26 for 276 yards and seven touchdowns on the day. And his favorite wide receiver, Dwayne Brown, had 8 catches, 113 yards, and three touchdowns. Darian Townsend, 6 catches, 104 yards, and two touchdowns. It is exhausting reading the box score for the Albany Firebirds week after week. But the offense got going early, and they were in a bit of a shootout in the first 20 minutes of this game before they finally pulled away for good, and they really ran it up in the second half. Defense played well at every level. Henry now had his usual incredible game. I think he had three straight deuces to open the game, and he was just as efficient as it gets. And the league is truthfully Albany's to lose at this point. And it's going to take a damn near perfect game from any other team in the AF1 to knock them from the top spot and to go into Albany and dethrone them and beat them in the playoffs or the Arena Football One championship. But moving over to another matchup between teams that are duking it out for a playoff spot, we had the Billings Outlaws going to Salina to face the Salina Liberty, and Salina won this game 60-41. So Salina's offense has been really incredible over the last month of the season, averaging about 52 points per game over the last four and getting better every single week. Season high in points against Billings in this one, and Rakeem Cato. He's just efficient. He's as efficient as they come. The offensive line was providing him quite a bit of time to be able to make throws as well. So big shout out to that big O line. He threw for 292 and five touchdowns on only 15 completions. I'm doing some quick math here. That's a lot of yards per completion. I think it's a little less than 20. That's insane on a 50-yard field. But for Malik Honeycutt, he continued to light it up at wide receiver. And if he's not an all AF1 wide receiver at the end of the year, we're going to have some fighting words with the league. I'm going to write a strongly worded tweet. And yeah, maybe that's it. But he lit it up with 8 catches for 159 yards and three touchdowns. And this offense did a pretty good job of getting Tracy Brooks involved in the passing game as well. I'd love to see them, again, get more involved in the running game. He only had 6 carries in this one, but he's so dynamic, and he is such a unique weapon in the AF1. I'd love to see them continue to find ways to get him the ball, both through the air and on the ground. But this Liberty offense, they're starting to peak at just the right time. Defense has stepped up and made plays to put this game out of reach in the fourth quarter. This score of 60-41, it was much worse than that in the fourth quarter. I promise you. If you don't believe me, go back and watch this game on Evergreen now. It was much worse than a 19-point game. But the Liberty, they seem like that team that nobody wants to face in the playoffs. And if they continue their current run on offense, They're going to be a headache for somebody down the road, but they've got a couple of massive games coming up that they pretty much have to win out in order to make the playoffs, and they're more than capable of doing it. But they face a very competent Southwest Kansas team led by the boy Jalen Morton. Shout out to Jalen, friend of the program. I can say that now. And yeah, Salina's going to be a very interesting team to see as a kind of see how things unfold towards the end of the season. But for Billings, this was a really tough stretch of games over the past month and a half, and they just had little to no margin for error if they wanted to make a run at the playoffs. But the road just got a lot tougher for them. If they were able to pull off this win, they probably put themselves in a decent enough position to be able to sneak into the playoffs. But it's going to be really hard for this team to make the playoffs, given how they performed in this game and some of the other non-Washington games on the schedule. But Malik Henry, he struggled in this one. He threw 4 interceptions, and he just looked off. It looked like he was forcing a lot of balls, and um, it looked like he was making a lot of throws off his back foot. And again, following the what we mentioned about Albany, forcing teams into making desperation plays. That's what it seemed like Billings was doing for a lot of this game. While he did have 234 yards and 4 touchdowns, a lot of that came when they were already down in a massive hole thanks to those 4 interceptions that we talked about. But Arthur Anderson, the fourth, he had a big game in this one, 9 catches, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And it was great to see friend of the program, Hunter Swoboda, get back in the action with a touchdown. But overall, this team has a bunch of pieces. I just feel like it's too little, too late for them to be able to make the playoffs and make some noise. I'd love to see them sneak into the playoffs as the 4 seed and get Dwayne Hollis and Darius Prince in a revenge game in Albany. I think that would be electric. I think that would be incredible, but I'm just having a hard time seeing how that happens, given where the Outlaws are at, given how Salina has been playing, and given the road that Nashville has ahead of them. I feel like Billings is probably going to be on the outside looking in, and just an incredibly disappointing season considering the year that they had last year, and they look like they were the next big thing in arena football. But the final game of the weekend, if you want to call it a game, was the Southwest Kansas Storm at the Washington Wolfpack, and Southwest Kansas won this game 63-7. So a real smacking going along here. But Southwest Kansas, they deserve a ton of credit for how well they played this year. They've had a few hiccups, close calls along the way, but they put together a really impressive body of work, and they have one of the best rosters in all of arena and indoor football. And most of it is players playing arena football for the first time this year or last year in Dodge City. Their shotgun offense, which we talked about with Jalen a little bit earlier, it's a modern take on arena football, but they find ways to make it work. And while I do wish they would have a little bit of under center for those short yardage situations, it works for them. They find a way to make it work. Jalen Morton had a great game in this one, 10 for 12, 10 out of 12 for 135 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and 73 yards on the ground as well. He was pretty much able to do whatever he wanted, and they just laid it on the Wolfpack in this one. They just laid it on thick, and they were able to do whatever they wanted. A wide receiver, Demarius Washington, 6 catches, 117 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Charles Hall, the fourth, added 2 touchdowns on the day, and the defense just absolutely dominated the Wolfpack. 9 sacks on the day, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. Just an outstanding game by the Storm, and Coach Gary Thomas should absolutely be front runner for AF1 Coach of the Year. If anybody else gets the award, again, I'm going to write a strongly worded tweet and at the AF1 and have some very strong words. But yeah, what a team they got in Southwest Kansas. They punched their ticket to the playoffs. Now they just gotta be able to lock in a home playoff game, and they could be a couple games away from an Arena Football One championship. But for Washington, if you know, I'm not going to dive into it too much. Just go watch the past couple weeks of rants on Washington, and I'm basically going to be saying the same things. In the entire month of May, the Wolfpack have 2 passing touchdowns, and they've played 4 games. Every touchdown they've scored over the past 2 games has been quarterback scrambles on a broken play where the quarterback's just running for his life and having to make something out of absolutely nothing. They found a way to beat their previous season low of 9 points scored, and it's just puzzling to see them trot out the same thing every week, make the same mistakes every week, make the same decisions every week, and wonder why things aren't getting better. I could go on, but for my own mental health, I'm going to stop right there, and I'm not going to proceed any further. So, good news for Washington. They get the hottest team in the league, Salina Liberty, next week as they go back to Kansas for a second consecutive week. And I would not be surprised if they're in the single digits again. And they're going to get boat raced by Salina. Absolutely. It's just a matter of, is it by 30? Is it by 40? I don't know. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly next week. All right, next up, we're going to dive into the IFL, and we had one heck of a week of IFL football. And the first game we're going to talk about is the Tulsa Oilers at the Iowa Barnstormers, and this was a wild, incredible game, an all-timer. Um, it was just from start to finish. If there's any one game you go back and watch, this might need to be the one, just because of how it all unfolded and the drama and the weirdness and the awkwardness and the chippiness and all the ness, any ness you can think of, throw it on here. And this game probably had it. There were mid-game delays due to roster number discrepancies, multiple ejections due to unsportsmanlike penalties, and an unbelievable 18-point comeback in the final 2.5 minutes of the game. Just unbelievable. Starting with Tulsa, this was a very un-Tulsa-like game for them for the first 57 minutes. They stalled out on offense multiple times, had tons of penalties on offense, and they really struggled to get the ground game going with backup quarterback slash running back now, Hassan Rogers, who apparently knows where the bodies are hidden because he's getting 20 touches a game, which is crazy. But there were multiple ejections for the Oilers that left him short-handed at some positions toward the end of the game, and they were having to plug and play some players. And Tulsa was down by 18 with two and change left, and T.J. Edwards scored a touchdown, got a 2-point conversion, recovered the onside kick, threw a bomb immediately after to Cole Blackman, played tough defense, got an interception, and then drove down the field and threw another touchdown to Trey Harvey, friend of the show, with 1 second left in the game. Just an unbelievable ending to like I was in disbelief for and probably an hour and a half after this game ended on that Friday night, just because I could not believe what we had just witnessed, and I was having trouble just wrapping my brain around it. And that's not even including a Sports Center top 10 number one play from German Smith. So this game was absolutely a banger. TJ Edwards, he won the Offensive Player of the Week award yet again. 195 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 75 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Big game for the Oilers, but was this an all-time comeback? Was this an all-time collapse? You be the judge. You can make a case for either. But for Iowa, this was just painfully on brand for what they are over the past 24 months or so. They played a fantastic 55 minutes in this game. Their offense was producing big plays. Quarterback James Cahoon, he threw for 247 yards, 6 touchdowns, and all of his wide receivers were getting to eat, and they were all going to work. But this looked like a game where I was like, all right, Iowa ain't dead yet. They ain't hear no bell. They can claw their way back into the playoff race. But then the last 5 minutes happened. They played a fantastic 55 minutes. That last 5 minutes was just awful. They had defensive ejections in the skirmish after TJ Edwards scored the touchdown at the 2.5 minute mark. They got caught sleeping on an onside kick. They got mossed on that throw to Cole Blackman. An embarrassing coach flop to try to draw a penalty on the Oilers. Go watch it on socials. I posted a whole reel breaking all this down with visuals on Instagram and on TikTok as well, which is kind of blown up, which is crazy. But they also had a bad interception to give the ball back to the Oilers with less than a minute left, and they let Tulsa drive down the field and score with 1 second. So this is just an epic meltdown, and it's going to be a tough one to swallow. And it's what makes it even worse, I think, is that if they do a George Costanza where they do the literal opposite of everything that they did in the last 3 minutes of this game, they probably win. And that's crazy to think about. That's insane. But Iowa drops to 1-7 on the year, and they got to go back to the drawing board yet again. Looks like they signed an old quarterback that used to play for them, and they might be hoping that that's the answer. But I don't know. I don't know what to say. The Iowa is they're in a tough spot. But speaking of being in a tough spot, we got the Fisher's Freight hosting the Jacksonville Sharks in our next game. Jacksonville won this game 46-40. So when this game kicked off, backup quarterback Blaine Espinosa took the field. As it appeared, Caleb Barker was not going to be active for the day, assuming it's an injury, but we don't know because IFL and its teams are awful at disclosing these things, especially considering that they have a sports betting partner, and that would be something they would want to be transparent on. But that's neither here nor there. Espinoza played okay, but was replaced by the newly signed Tyler Huff in the second half, and he had quite a game in his debut. He had quite a game. He busted a 28-yard touchdown run to open up his account with the Sharks, and the offense was just reignited and cooking from there. Huff didn't really blow anyone away through the air. Huff and Puff, that's funny. But he was getting 6 yards per carry on the ground and scored 3 touchdowns in the second half. And they just presented a different look than Espinosa did in the first half. And he was a much more active ground threat. And it worked for the Sharks as they were able to outscore the Fishers Freight 32-12 in the third and fourth quarter. And the defense got run over in the first half, but they locked in and had a shutout going in the second half until the last couple minutes. So another really impressive game from the Sharks, but arguably they're most impressive considering the quarterback situation and some of the pivots that they had to make along the way. But for Fishers, they started well in this one. They jumped out to a 28-14 lead, scored right before halftime to get a double-digit lead, and it was like, okay, they're going to do it. They're going to do the thing. Come on, Fishers, let's do the thing. And they just couldn't build on it. In the second half, Fishers' drives resulted in a turnover on downs, a lost fumble, turnover on downs, and then 2 touchdowns at the very end in garbage time. By the time they get going in the fourth quarter, it was just too late. The quarterback play was again average at best. They played both Jaya Wright and Keegan Shoemaker. Shoemaker had 4 touchdowns on the ground, all in short yardage situations, but they just couldn't pass the ball in this one. And it's a travesty that they can't pass the ball on a team that has JT Stokes, Isaiah Cox, and Jordan Kress at wide receiver, all very talented wide receivers who have shown what they can do in on other teams when given the opportunity, but they're just kind of stuck in hell, in wide receiver hell in this Fishers team. But with the top of the Eastern Conference starting to pull away from the bottom, Fishers and Iowa are kind of at the bottom, and they're sitting at 2-6 right now. Fishers is, and they're 3.5 games out of a playoff spot at the halfway point of the season, and it seems like they might have to bring in a new body at quarterback, I think, if they want to have a legitimate shot at making a playoff run, just because Jaya Wright and Keegan Shoemaker just they're not the long-term solution, or I think the solution for the rest of the season even, but we'll see what Fishers ends up choosing to do. But next thing we're going to talk about is the Bay Area Panthers at the San Antonio Gunslingers, and Bay Area ran away with this one 55-26. Despite the final score of this one, the game was pretty close in the first half, believe it or not. San Antonio, they were trading blows with Bay Area, and they were looking like they had a chance to go the full 12 with the Panthers. But then the Panthers woke up in the second half and realized, yeah, we're Bay Area. We're not going to do that. And they just pounced on every mistake that San Antonio made in the second half and made them pay for it. Josh Jones at quarterback finished the game 128 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns, adding another touchdown on the ground to go with 74 rushing yards as well. So he's just been an incredible rushing threat for this Panthers team. And the Panthers had 4 different players score on the ground, and they were able to literally run it up on San Antonio in the second half. And this Panthers team is just so good, and it makes too much sense when you look at the caliber of coaching they have in place and some of the returning players and some of the cast that played together in Northern Arizona last season. And they were able to get their revenge on San Antonio for that opening week loss, or opening season loss, I should say. And they're sitting at a great spot, 6-2 at the midway point of the season, and looking like they're on track for another run at the playoffs. But for San Antonio, this was definitely a tale of two halves for them. They looked ready for war in the first half, but they just fell apart in the second half with 4 turnovers to literally fumble away any chance of pulling off the upset. Joaquin Collazo, he had a tough week compared to his debut the week prior. He only went 9 for 21, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 2 back-breaking second-half interceptions. Keyshawn Harper kind of got going on the ground in this one, 12 carries for 61 yards, but they had to abandon the running game in the second half just to try to stop the bleeding, and the wheels kind of fell off of anything the Gunslingers had going for them. But San Antonio, again, like Iowa, like Fishers, they're in a tough spot. 2-6 in a very talented Western Conference where the top is starting to pull away and the bottom is starting to sink a lot further down. And they're by no means out of the playoff hunt just yet. If Collazo can get back on track and allow his wide receivers to get more engaged and to be a little bit more intentional with the running game as well. Maybe get Keyshawn Harper going a little bit earlier to take some of that pressure off of Collazo. They can steal a couple games and get right back in it, but it's going to be a tough road ahead for San Antonio to be able to claw back and maybe get to a 500 record. That might be enough to make the playoffs, but probably not. But the next game we're going to talk about is the Arizona Rattlers at the Northern Arizona Wranglers. And the Arizona Rattlers won this game 54-47. So over the entire weekend of games across all leagues, this one was arguably the most underrated of the weekend. And it happened late on Saturday night, and I'm not sure a ton of people watched it based on just social activity and some of the conversations that were going on for other games, but not this one. Northern Arizona, they came into this game as 13 and a half point underdogs, and they have looked night and day different with the arrival of Ramon Atkins at quarterback. He looked great in this one. He had this offense humming all game long and by far their best offensive output of the season against a very good Rattlers team. So it's promising that Northern Arizona was able to do this against a very good Rattlers team that's only lost one game all year. And Northern Arizona had them on the ropes and had a chance to deliver the knockout punch late in the fourth, but just couldn't do it. Atkins finished with 193 yards and 4 passing touchdowns, with 61 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground as well. So the offense just seems to click so well with him at the helm, and four different receivers caught passes in the game with four different receivers, each catching a touchdown pass in this one as well. Nolan Susel at running back, I love what he brings to the table, and I just feel like he's going to grow into such a dynamic 1-2 punch with Atkins on the ground, especially in the red zone in the second half of the season. And this Wranglers team, they might have put themselves in too big of a hole to start the season, and not sure if they have the firepower to, put together a 6-7 game win streak, but they're going to be able to make things a lot more interesting in the second half of the season. And a lot of the games that look like walkover shoe-in games for other teams when they saw Northern Arizona on the schedule at the beginning of the year, they just got a little more dicey on the second half of the season. So they're going to be a very fun team to watch, and I'm excited to see how they continue to grow. But for the Rattlers, this was another thrilling game and another one where they were really tested and pushed to the limit by another in-state rival. If you remember, their only loss of the season was to the Tucson Sugar Skulls, and it looked like Northern Arizona was going to pull off the upset for the majority of the second half until the Rattlers did what the Rattlers do, find a way to win the game. And that's exactly what they did. Running back Ron Brown Jr., he popped off in the first half. He had 3 early touchdowns and finished the game with 73 rushing yards. And wide receiver Isaiah Houston, he's just been Mr. Clutch for the Rattlers. A third straight game catching a touchdown pass in the final minute to take the lead or seal the win. And he finished with 8 catches for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns and was near the ball every single time the Rattlers needed a big play. Houston was in the area, and more often than not, he was the one making that big catch. So the Rattlers, they're just such a fun team to watch. They're so well coached. They execute the little things so well. Their blocking is phenomenal. Their selling of play action is so, so good. And all the little things add up in the end. And that's a reason why they're sitting with the best record in the IFL at the midway point of the season and in the driver's seat to be able to host the playoffs and have the Western Conference run through Arizona. But the final game of the weekend that I wanted to talk about was the Vegas Nighthawks taking on the San Diego Strike Force, and San Diego won this game 42-39. So when the season's done, we're going to look back on this game in particular for both teams, and this is going to be a very big one. I feel like this is going to be one that determines who's a 3 or a 4 in the playoffs, or who's a 4 or a 5 and misses the playoffs. I think this game could come down. When we look back on the season, we could look at this game and be like, ooh, that was the one. But for San Diego, they start off pretty good in this one. They were able to jump out to a lead with Nate Davis leading the charge, throwing 2 touchdowns in the first half. But into the first half and through the rest of the game, backup quarterback slash offensive weapon slash award-winning realtor, Rudy Johnson stepped in at quarterback, and I'm not sure if it was an injury concern with Nate Davis or what the deal was, but almost instantly, as soon as Johnson got in at quarterback, the identity changed for the Strike Force. Nate Davis is that prototypical pocket passer who doesn't have the same mobility as some of his peers. I don't think that's a secret. Everyone knows that at this point. But Rudy Johnson is a dual threat guy who came into the league as a quarterback and has found ways to make himself impactful in other ways, but ultimately still has the ability to throw the rock and be a real dual threat guy. So he's one where he could turn a 2 or 3 yard run into a 20 yard run very, very easily, which he did in this game as well. So they became a run first team in this game, and it worked pretty well in the second half as they were able to control the pace of the game. They scored the go ahead touchdown with 3 seconds left, or did they? I don't know. It's debatable. I didn't think he got in on the ankle, but the refs ruled that he did and couldn't find enough evidence to overturn it. So that's why I say we're going to look back on this game and it's going to be like, ugh. If Vegas doesn't make the playoffs because of that call, that could get interesting, could get dicey. But nonetheless, San Diego got the win. They improved to 4-4 on the year and helped, get slightly back on track. And San Diego's defense has been playing really, really well all season long. So big shout out to them for some of the plays that they were able to make to secure the win here. But for Vegas, they were in a good rhythm on offense heading into this game. Jerome Johnson seemed to be getting back into his old form, and the same could be said about Vegas as a whole in this one as they got things going. That is until Johnson took a big bump on a quarterback keeper and he landed awkwardly and he was forced to miss some action. And backup quarterback Jaden DeLaura was put back in the lineup. And we've already seen what DeLaura can do, and he's pretty good. And he looked pretty damn good in this game. I'm not gonna lie. I love Jerome, friend of the show, but DeLaura looked really, really good in this game. It took a series or two for him to get the timing right, and just to get the high man motion at the line of scrimmage correct, get on the same page as the offensive lineman. But once he got going, he looked sharp. He had a couple really big time throws, and he put Vegas in a super interesting position here where Johnson probably looked healthy enough to be able to step back in the game if he was forced to. But DeLaura had the hot hand towards the end, so they just let it ride with him, and they nearly won this game. So if you're Vegas, what do you do? Jerome Johnson struggled to start the year. They put in DeLaura, looked pretty good. DeLaura got hurt. Johnson gets another shot, takes it and runs with it. Has been playing really, really well over the past 3, 4 games. Now Johnson gets hurt. DeLaura gets thrown back out there. DeLaura looked great throwing the ball. Do you roll with Johnson still? Do you go back to DeLaura? I don't know. It's a very, very interesting spot that Vegas is in, and I feel like they have to go with Johnson. Just because he started to really cook. He started to look really, really good before he got hurt in this game. But DeLaura's performance makes it a tough decision, but maybe it's a good thing that it's a tough decision. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what Vegas ends up doing and how they want to proceed here. Lastly, we're going to dive into the National Arena League. We had a handful of games played this past weekend, and the playoff field is set for the NAL, which we'll dive into after we go through these games. But the first game I want to talk about is the Columbus Lions at the Wheeling Miners, and Columbus won this game 39-13 to lock in the final playoff spot in the NAL playoffs. And the Lions were able to run the ball really, really well in this one. Marco Lee at running back led the way, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. Vincent Espinoza had another touchdown on the ground as well. The Lions, they really didn't need to do much through the air in this one. They really controlled the game and let their defense do the heavy lifting. And that's always a good thing when you're able to do that. Columbus is going to meet up with the Beaumont Renegades in the first round of the playoffs, but they have one more matchup with the Wheeling Miners next week in the last week of the regular season before that game. So this wasn't anything that made you go, wow, the Lions are incredible. They're really good. Wheeling just seemed very shorthanded in this one, and the Lions were just able to lean on them and really take away their will to live, to be dramatic. But for the Miners, they had a glimmer of hope to make the playoffs if they won out. And that would mean beating the Columbus Lions twice over the last 2 weeks in order to sneak into the playoffs. And they just ran out of steam in this one. And truthfully, the entire month of May, that seems to be the theme for the Wheeling Miners, just running out of steam. They've had struggles in the second half. Over the last 4 games, they've scored 19 points total in the second half. And that's just not good enough. And it makes sense when you look at them being on the outside looking in. And when it comes to the playoff picture, when a lot of folks before the season started thought they were a strong contender to make the playoffs, and not just make the playoffs, but make a run at the championship as well. They had a new quarterback in Davis Black in the game. Didn't go well for him passing the ball. Could only kind of get things going on the ground. The defense did what they could, but it just wasn't enough. And a disappointing season in Wheeling is coming to a close in one more week as they face the Lions yet again. And we'll have to see how they can retool and come back in 2026 bigger and better than ever. But the next game I want to talk about is the Omaha Beef hosting the Shreveport Rougarou, and Omaha won this game 47-12. So as lopsided as that scoreboard looks, I promise you it was much worse. And it could have been much worse if Omaha left their foot on the gas. Shreveport, they're just a mess right now. And they seem to, like, this roster that they trotted out in Omaha was like a Frankenstein's monster of a lineup with pieces in a bad way, not a good way, with pieces from the original Shreveport team and the Dallas Falcons all mushed into one. Dallas Falcons being the semi-pro team that they brawled with last week. It's a whole thing. Nothing super notable for Shreveport here, but there were some interesting comments made by the NAL commissioner, Brandon Ickard, in the fourth quarter of the game. He hopped on the commentary with the Omaha Beef commentary team there. And they were asking some pretty frank questions, and I was really surprised at how like honest the conversation was from Omaha's side, and they were pressing them. They were like, "Look, what we're seeing on the field here, what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, out of Shreveport in particular." I'm paraphrasing here; they didn't say this exactly, but they did a pretty good job of being as direct as they could. How it's just not acceptable, and it's not what the league needs, and the commissioner was able to politically dance around it as he should as the commissioner, but he did allude to being a lot more strict with their vetting and being able to make sure that teams that they add going forward and their like teams that they add going forward are good fits for the league, not just for one season, but for the longevity of the league. And they mentioned the possibility of contraction instead of growth, where maybe Shreveport gets kicked out of the league for some of the stuff that's happened over the past month. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how the league chooses to proceed, and interesting to see how Shreveport wants to maybe do things on their own terms, get things cleaned up, get things figured out. It's not a good situation in Shreveport, and I think the NAL knows that. And I think the more interesting comment of the game was from the Omaha commentators after the commissioner left the booth. They were talking about, like, obviously the teams that have been around for a long time, the Omahas, the Sioux Cities, the Columbuses, they deserve a league that is putting as much into the league, putting in from everybody. Like, those three teams in particular have been around for 20 years. They've been around for such a long time, and there's a reason for that. They're a well-run organization, as much as we like to troll them and poke fun. They're really well-run organizations that deserve a league that's also well-run and has the longevity to grow into something special. And I thought something that was interesting from the Omaha commentators was that they said, we hope that league that can grow, we hope the National Arena League is the answer there. If not, where do they go? So it seems like, I don't know. Like, if you go listen to it for yourself. Don't let me be the sole translator for this. I thought it was super interesting. It's on YouTube. Go check out the fourth quarter and listen to it for yourself. But I thought it was interesting, where it seems like the NAL is in a position where if they don't get their act together next season, we could see some of those core three teams make a jump for another league, and that would make things very, very interesting. But to wrap up this game, for Omaha, they started to reload the deck for the playoffs with a couple pieces that were added before this game, including wide receiver Jordan Barton, who was there for a couple of years over the past few seasons. And they were just able to impose their will on the Rougarou. Lawrence Brown Jr. had 134 yards and 3 touchdowns on the day at quarterback, and running back Tobias Taylor was able to add 48 yards and 2 touchdowns of his own. And this game probably could have been 80-12 if Omaha stayed on the gas. But truthfully, this was never a competitive game. From the opening kick until the very end, this was never competitive. It was never going to be competitive. And this is a part of the problem with the NAL, where they were cracking jokes about other leagues being 2-team, 3-team leagues, when they're in a very similar situation on their own, where the very bottom of the league is pathetic and just not putting a competitive product on the field. So it seems like there's a lot of work to be done in Shreveport to get them to a sustainable level. Omaha's in the playoffs. They'll be facing off with Colorado next week to see who will host that opening week of the playoffs for their divisional round. But yeah, very, very interesting game here, and a lot more telling of some off the field stuff than on the field stuff with this game in particular. But the final game of the week that we're going to talk about is the Colorado Spartans taking on the Sioux City Bandits, and Colorado won this game 61-31. So huge beatdown here by the Spartans, and they're looking like the team to beat in the NAL right now. Just based on how well they've played on the back half of the season. Quarterback Andre Sale, he's on a tear. He absolutely blew this game up in a big way, throwing for 205 and 6 touchdowns. He found 4 different wide receivers for touchdowns. Greg Dent twice, Bizette Woodley twice, Stephen Newbold once, and his buddy Lex Rosario once through the air. And they've had a super talented roster of skill players all year. And Sale seems to be the guy who has unlocked that offense's full potential. They're white hot at the perfect time heading into that final week of the season. And it's a massive win for Colorado here as they set up a final showdown with the Omaha Beef to determine who's going to host that playoff game, like I mentioned. So, very interesting storyline heading into the final week of the NAL season next week. But for Sioux City, tough way for the season to end. Getting nearly doubled up on your own home turf is never good, especially for a team that always seems to be in the mix towards the end of the season. There just wasn't much to hang the hat on in this one. And when they were able to score here and there, they were never really able to, put together long drives and sustain their drives and keep that Colorado offense off the field. And I alluded to it last week. It seems like we're going to see a big time rebuild in Sioux City, and it may be for the best with returning a lot of the same roster from last season and picking up some pieces here or there. It might just be time to blow it up and see what new direction you could possibly take the team. So it's going to be interesting to see what Sioux City does. But the NAL playoffs, they are set. We've got Omaha and Colorado on one side, and then we've got Beaumont and Columbus on the other. So next week we'll be able to see who's going to host that playoff game between Colorado and Omaha, and we'll get to see what type of form that not Omaha, Columbus will be as they head into Beaumont for that opening round of the playoffs. And that's the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to check it out this week. Big thanks to Jalen Morton for hopping on the show and talking shop about his football journey, where he's been throughout his football career, some stuff that he's achieved off the field, stuff that he's achieved on the field, and some of his travels and where some of that stuff has taken him. So please make sure you're following him on Instagram and follow his travels, not just in the football world, but outside of the football world as well. I really hope he gets another opportunity in the UFL, CFL, or possibly the NFL. I think he's a great talent, a great guy, and he just needs that opportunity. So big shout out to Jalen. Again, make sure you're following him on socials. He's going to be a fun follow, both for football and travel as well. But we got a great weekend of AF1, IFL, and NAL football ahead of us. IFL actually kicks off on Thursday this week, so we've got football on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday over the next couple of days. So very exciting times. Be able to watch a lot of indoor and arena football. And come join the conversation on socials. Give us a follow at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB. We're on X, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, all the things and stuff. Come say hi, come say hello, come join the conversation. We're equal parts trolling, red hot, spicy takes, ice cold takes somewhere in between. Takes that probably shouldn't be said, but we say them anyway because, we can't keep takes in. We got to let them out. So come join the conversation and have some fun. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you're liking the video and subscribing to the channel as well. And again, I've got this big empty canvas right here over my left shoulder. What should I put here? The space, it wants to be used. How do we use it? I don't know. Drop it in comments if you have any ideas on what we could use this space for. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, thank you for doing that. Please rate the show 5 stars. Like the episode, share it with a friend, peer pressure your friends into listening, because that's what friends are for, right? And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, go over to YouTube. Go over to YouTube and subscribe there as well. Come on, do me a big favor. Come on, help your boy out. On the YouTube channel, we've got some editions of the Turf Tapes. We've got another one coming up next week that's going to be very, very fun. We've got a bunch of shorts on there. We've got a whole catalog. We've got over 50 different episodes of Off the Wall over the past year and a half or so. So go check those out. And all the love and support so far has been really awesome and really appreciated. So thank you all for taking the time to check it out and listen to it. There's only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend like an hour and a half here listening to me talk about arena football and indoor football, and listening to my conversation with Mr. Jalen Morton means a lot. So really, really appreciate the support so far, and looking forward to seeing how we can grow this thing out from here. Come say hi on socials. Don't be shy. Join the conversation. Enjoy the upcoming week of arena and indoor football, and we'll see you next time. Take care.